talk about the post-apocalyptic, super 28 days later, there are no more humans left on Earth, Amazon cashierless supermarkets.
Well, okay, so these, some of you guys that live in, I believe it's Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, and one other city, you might have been inside one of these. I think they're called Amazon Go. So they're basically, they're kind of like a 7-Eleven, the ones that exist before this. So like 7-Elevens, but you scan your Amazon app, you just walk in, grab stuff, leave, and they bill you later. It's kind of a neat idea. However, they're now moving to their first actual grocery store. Now, this is... We'll go through it. This is what's creeping me out, and this is what I don't like to think. Because we talked about, obviously, Andrew Yang had been sounding the alarms for automation. And if you live in the world, you're seeing it around you. But this really stuck out to me as a really kind of interesting thing for it. Because I'll pull up and show you guys a video in a second of what the regular Amazon Go groceries or the Amazon Go stores have looked like. They are really small. They're basically little kiosks. And you walk in, you walk out. They're, I want to say, maybe the size. I mean, they're generally speaking smaller than your average 7-Eleven. They're pretty small little instances, but we're now seeing the newest one is very here we go. Can I get here's a video of one. I'll put it on screen for you. Sorry, it's a little bit small, but we're on the Amazon website.
Well, there's people inside. I'm glad they added people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm glad that automation argument that we have a RoboCop future with no humanity. Kind of some director just said, hey, let's add people. Yeah, they finally hired a PR guy that said, let's add people.
Oh, this actually looks like one of the showing larger ones. But again, these things was for a few years now. This video, I want to say, goes back a while. But the newest one they have rolled out in Washington is something, or I believe in Seattle, is something else, man. I have not seen.
But how do they know that you bought it? Do they request that you just scan it on your iPhone?
What it does is they have they'll explain it in the article. Let me pull it up. The way I understand it, they basically know what you've grabbed. It's similar-ish, I believe, to mini bars, hotel bars. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they kind of like know that something was taken and they just charge you because they have your card.
Yeah. There's 10 people in the store. How do they know which one took the whatever?
I'm sure they have problems with that, but they go through it. But again, it's really fascinating to me the way they've done this because they mentioned they have 1 or 2 people on staff at all times that are stocking, but they're also doing things like bringing in fresh produce, but they also have, you notice, like fresh donuts from local bakeries. They'll have someone there checking IDs because they do sell booze, but the scale of this is what creeps me out, man. It is gigantic. It's like a grocery store, but
I think like this what is I was the future, saying. And the only reason why I embrace this is because ultimately I kind of think that one of the biggest problems of anything, whether it's filmmaking or whether it's retail, is the actual act of distribution. The only reason why a baker has to be absolutely married to his store is because he has to be there when the customer is able to come in. But imagine if you were a baker who said, instead of my store where I got to work at it from 4 a.m. all the way until 9 p.m., and it becomes this family job that, I end up having my kids coming and working after school and all sort of stuff. Imagine if I could just show up, bake my world famous awesome croissants and whatever, and then just dump them off at the Amazon store and then go have fun with my kids while they worry about distribution. And I still sell the same amount of croissants.
As well, and also, this is something else I want to bring up, and this is also kind of you kind of put it to it as well.
Well, now the robots are working for us instead of against us.
Well, also to this, they mention here at the bottom, it's a little picture caption, but they do mention it that there'll be greeters and other employees at the store, just not cashiers. They mention up here a little bit higher in the article, like obviously they're going to have somebody checking IDs, so maybe when you're buying alcohol, before you walk out, excuse me, can I see your ID if you're walking out with alcohol? But one other thing is, and I've talked about this a little bit with, I feel like the way automation is going to change restaurants is in 25 years, you'll know it's a fancy restaurant because they have real life waiters. You know what I mean? Like, they have a human waiter. I think we're going to start getting to the point where it could be freeing up. Amazon has the money to, but you could hire staff whose only job is there just to make sure things are orderly, intended to, and people are finding what they need to find. And you don't have people doing 40 jobs at once. There is no cashier. There is no bagger, I don't think. I'm pretty sure it's just you buy what you need and you leave. Everyone there is stocking, or more, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the more human interactive. You'll have like customer service at a grocery store all of a sudden because the people are kind of remotely dropping off the stuff. You don't have to have all hands on deck. We're running a whole grocery store here. You're mostly just monitoring you automate away all the difficult stuff, and the human beings are just kind of handling the human interaction process. There is a future here where it's not the end of the days. To me, it's big, and I really hope they staff it properly. If this is something that has 3 people staffed there, that would creep me out, just walking around. Like, imagine you show up to a grocery store and you're by yourself and it's this just giant empty corridor. But if it is something where they still have 7, 8 people on staff, it's easier to get in and out because you just walk in and out. You don't actually have to physically, check everything in, bag everything in. I think that's a really cool future. Again, it doesn't, as far as I know, you can't pay cash for this, which is weird to me. The we don't take cash here. That is weird, and that's what concerns me probably the most, is the fact of, like, I hope we don't move away from cash as currency, because they literally won't take it, right? They'll just. Okay. But also, what do they do if you walk out and you're just overdrawn in your account? What do they do?
They don't care, because that's a bank problem. They already sold their goods and they got the money from that bank. And now the bank gets to leverage the person then with the overdraft fees, because we've gone from having the Sweet 16 big banks where there was lots of competition to post 2008 with governmental intervention, because governmental intervention is always good.
Okay, but then the banks also
now we only have the Final Four. We've gone from the Sweet 16 to the Final Four.
But then those banks also...
And they all agree with each other. Hey, we need to charge at least $50 for an overdraft fee. And if you don't go lower than 50, I won't go lower than 50, and you won't go lower than 50, and we all make a bunch of money. You know what I'm saying? That's why. So any of you boneheads that vote for Bernie Sanders that think a government program is going to make anything better, go look at your bank account last time you accidentally overdrafted, and you'll see just exactly how effective governmental intervention is.
But didn't those banks run themselves out of business?
Well, yes and no.
So, so the government would play some part, but not all. Like the banks...
No, the government bailed them out, and they all went home, and they all had their golden parachutes.
I'm just saying, these poor, innocent banks weren't just helplessly walking around the street one day when the economy fell on top of them. Like,
no,
they
but
played some role in this.
The government said that our intervention will save the economy and will create a better banking environment, when it didn't. It just empowered the banks that survived, and they gave golden parachutes to the guys that had caused the problem in the first place.
Sounds like those banks shouldn't have ran themselves out of business then, right? Sounds like maybe they shouldn't have operated.
What are you talking about? No, J.P. Morgan Chase loved the 2008 crisis because it got to acquire 7 of the failed banks.
Listen, the 7 that failed by being ran improperly maybe should have done things better to avoid that.
But they didn't fail. They all got $300 million golden parachutes. Like, failure implies that you didn't make money and it ruined you. No. And there's not a single banking executive.
Didn't they have to close because the banks no longer had like any trust anymore? So they had to close the banks down?
I mean,
how much money would you give to them? The Fannie Mae? How much money would you give to them today?
Okay, the truth
Fannie
is,
Mac? What was that? I don't even remember anymore.
The truth is, the nuance of the conversation involved in analyzing the banking crisis of 2008 really could take its own episode, so we probably shouldn't even
I'm just saying there was multiple people involved. It wasn't like somebody showed up with the economy gun and shot them in the back. It's like everyone played a role.
Yeah. I'm curious how the Google algorithms are going to analyze the world. They showed up with the economy gun. That's funny. I've never heard that one before. There's probably some, bit of code in there. It's like, how do we handle this comment? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what else we got to talk about? Is that it? So this might be the beginning of the apocalypse.
Well, Amazon is definitely moving forward with this concept of, and I guess what I largely want to talk about, it freaks me out the size. And
dude, if you give me UBI in a store like that, I'm a happy citizen.
Well, to me,
we've got the store, now we just need the UBI, baby.
The pushback against a UBI, really, and the pushback against automation and jobs is some jobs will be automated, but the idea of jobs won't. And yes, looking at the store, I could see how the first thing that came to my mind is I would just want other staff around the store to help me out and make me feel more comfortable. Because, I'm pretty young. I don't think I have to worry about it. But what happens if like an older person there just slips, falls, hurts themselves, and there's no staff around, right? That was the kind of stuff that was jumping out at me. Like, but if that's just the future of employment for these kind of jobs, like when you work at a grocery store now, you're not a cashier. You're just basically customer service. You just kind of walk around and ask people how they're doing and stuff. That also isn't the worst world to live in either, right? Again, though, if you take 40 jobs and turn them into 5, that's bad. But if you take 40 jobs and turn them into 35 different jobs, it's not great, but it's also not the end of the world, right? I don't know. I think that's just kind of one thing I took from this was how immediately it jumped off the page at me looking at this.
I'm with Elon Musk on this.
Removing humans, but just it feels like, a grocery store with no humans, that would be nice. But when you look at it, it's like that would be eerie, creepy, and probably not safe. So like I think we take for granted how much how nice it is when we go into places having a few employees there that are just other human beings that are around to do things. You know what I mean? I think that's underrated a little bit, and the phasing out, because you technically could have a McDonald's where there's two chefs in the back who never interact with anyone, right?
Yeah.
But then you also you have a public area that's just a madhouse. Like, who enforces anything? There's no one. It just, I don't know. That's going to stand.
Maybe our public areas would be better maintained because we would have more volunteers and people interested in the social fabric that the park actually creates. So that's the beauty of UBI. Anyway, let us know what you guys think. Please comment below. If you haven't had a chance to like this video, make sure you like the video. Follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. And if you can, please join the channel. Consider joining. It's really an inexpensive way to make sure that we keep bringing you these videos without any corporate sponsorships. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.